About 11 o'clock. Today we're going to talk about luxury goods, right? Luxury brands and this kind of stuff. And how do you make these things? What are they? I sell luxury product, right? I sell luxury good. I operate in a space that is similar to, Louis Vuitton handbags or Gulfstream private jets or, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, all these kind of things. And these luxury good spaces are great places to make money, right? If you want to be able to work for yourself and be able to sell a product at a high enough margin that you can make money, it's really important that you're able to kind of distinguish yourself from other people that do the same thing. And one of the ways that you can do that is to be a luxury brand, right? Or to work to build up your status as a luxury brand, right? So how do we do that? What is it? What's the point? Why bother? All these kind of things. Like what is so great about a luxury brand? And I'll tell you guys this real quick, then we'll get on to our discussion, is I've worked for luxury brands my entire life. When I moved from Oregon into Wichita, Kansas, I built interiors for Cessna jets, for Beechcraft jets, for Hawker jets, and I did some work for the Air Force, right? So I've always made cabinets for luxury brands, right? And then I moved to a company called Nordam in Oklahoma, and that was more commercial stuff. So I was doing things for different kinds of commercial planes, New Zealand Air and Virgin Atlantic, companies like that. A little bit different, but then I went to Gulfstream, right, which is the premier private jet company. And again, these are luxury goods, jets that cost $50 to $75 million a pop, right? So these luxury goods are great places to work, and they're fantastic products to create and sell for yourself if you could do it. And it's very difficult, it's not easy, but we're gonna talk about it today. And hopefully if you're looking for work, if you're working on your career, if you can get into one of these luxury brands, it's going to be a great way to make a living for yourself, right? And for me, it was aerospace, right? General aviation. But it could be, if you're in the automotive industry, there are all kinds of auto brands out there, but everyone kind of knows what the luxury brands are. And there might be, specific products within a company's portfolio that might be considered luxury, but they're not necessarily luxury brands. Right? The luxury brands are going to be, if you're in automotive, it's going to be like Bentley. It's going to be Ferrari. It might be McLaren. Porsche is a luxury brand, but it's kind of a commercially acceptable luxury brand, a little bit different. But there are these brands, right? If you're in the clothing space, clothing would be your Hermes, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, these kind of brands, and you kind of your lower tier stuff like Burberry and things like that. But if you're in the furniture space, there are a lot of furniture luxury brands out there as well. And here at the Resplendent Crow, we've tried to maintain a luxury good or a luxury brand kind of existence within this furniture space. And while there are tons of people that make furniture, and there are tons of people that high gloss lacquer furniture, which is what I have back here, the Resplendent Crow is kind of the main name when it comes to high gloss lacquer, and so we'll talk about why that is and how maybe you can apply some of this stuff to what it is that you do, and we'll answer comments and questions. And I've learned to say in the videos, hit the like button, anyone that's watching right now, hit that like button and add to the comments, all that kind of stuff, because it helps kind of spread it around to other people. So anyway, we're talking about luxury brands today. What is it? How do we make them? Why do I operate in this space with the Resplendent Crow? My name is Eric Wilkin. I own the Resplendent Crow here in St. Louis, Missouri with my wife, Suchetta, and we make handmade furniture here in St. Louis. We high gloss lacquer vintage furniture. We high gloss lacquer new furniture. We sell luxury hardware, brass hardware that we have made in India, and we all design it here right in St. Louis, and we sell it on our website, theresplendentcrow.com. And anyway, we have put this company together over the last about 10 years and turned it into something that is a little bit higher on the index scale of luxury brands in the furniture space than a lot of other companies. Now, do we make the most money? No, we don't. But that's one of the reasons that we're able to operate a company here in America is because, and we're able to do it with so few people, is because we have a luxury status attached to our brand, which allows us to charge more than everybody else that is in our market, right? Everyone else that high gloss lacquers furniture sells for cheaper, right? Their lead times are probably going to be quicker than ours, right? So we get to have a longer lead time, right? And our perceived quality on the things that we make and the things that we sell is probably higher than most people, right? Which allows us to charge more. So there's things that a luxury brand can do that just other brands can't really do. So if we got people starting to come in, payroll and bookkeeping, hi, subscribe, payroll tax. Okay, fantastic. Nice to meet you. Glad you're here. We got Rafi and JJ. Yes, hello. And let me know where you guys are at. I know a lot of people watch this stuff in other countries. My wife is from India. We do business in that part of the world. And we also, again, own and operate a company right here in St. Louis, Missouri. We ship our furniture all over the world. We ship, during COVID, we did about 2,500 pieces a year. Right now, I probably do about 1,000, okay? And here's the funny thing. I make more money now than I made during COVID selling twice as much furniture, okay? And we can talk about that as well. There's a reason you want to sell a luxury brand, right? Or a luxury good, because again, what I was just saying, the price you can charge and the margin you get off what it is that you charge grows with the value that people see in your brand, okay? So I wrote down a whole bunch of notes. I'll try and stay on task as much as I can. But if anyone has anything to add to the conversation, please let me know. And let's see, we got more people coming in. I'll be happy to walk people around the shop if you guys put it in the comments, because I know that my audio got cut off from the feed that I did Friday, and I was talking about how we paint things and why we use a system that we use as opposed to what most people use, which is like a compressor style system with $1,000 spray guns. We don't use any of that. It's very different, and that may or may not contribute to what our finish is. I honestly couldn't tell you. I haven't done a ton of research in other companies. So good morning. We got what's this? ICN Diaz and IBF Phoenix. Nice. I've actually never been to Arizona. I have shipped furniture to Arizona, and I have been to probably every state in America. I haven't been to New Mexico or Arizona. I'm Pacific Northwesterner. I grew up in Oregon, Corvallis, Oregon, and I've been all along the West Coast, but just never made it to that particular region. So anyway, okay. So look, what is a luxury good, right? So everyone kind of knows what a luxury good is, right? If we see the names, we see the products, we kind of know. We've seen all the people that got the the Louis Vuitton, the Gucci's, they drive around in the Ferrari or the Lamborghini or whatever. Like, we've seen all these things, the Rolex watches and all this kind of stuff. So if you want to know like a technical definition for a luxury good, I wrote it down. It's just a non-essential product, right? It's like if you need you could buy a spoon or a fork to eat, right? But how nice would it be to own a spoon or a fork that's made by Hermes, right? Hermes, a company that's been in business for 140 years at this point, right? Makes handbags, makes the Birkin bag, right? They make all these products. They started off as an equestrian company, and they built up this lineage and pedigree for this last 140 years. And now you can buy plates, that are $400 a piece, that are Hermes plates, right? And I know this from working in aerospace, right? So when I worked in private aircraft for 20 years, I would see these plates, and I would just be like, well, this is kind of interesting. I have these kind of mosaic designs on them, and I never really thought much of it until I met my wife. And then I showed her one day, and she's like, holy shit, that's a Hermes plate. She's like, those people make, she showed me all the other things they made. I had no idea, right? And this is kind of where I really starting to understand branding and luxury goods. And she was telling me, like, those are like $400 plates, and it's like, well, it'd be $400 for like a set. And she's like, no, for one plate. So when you can develop a brand, again, you can charge insane amount of money, and you can make very high margins. The richest person in the world, I believe, owns Hermes, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he's the person in Europe that owns several companies like Hennessy and a bunch of these brands. And I think Hermes might be in their portfolio of companies, but I'm not sure. So anyway, so it's a non-essential good. If you're buying a car, everyone knows the Toyota Camry is about the most reliable, affordable piece of transportation you can get, but people sure do like to drive Audis, and you see a lot of Mercedes Benzes, and those are a little bit on the higher tier. They're more of like luxury style vehicles. But if you're really in the rarefied air of what it means to be a luxury brand, you're driving around in a Bentley, right? Bentleys or Rolls Royce. Rolls Royce, $500,000. Mercedes Benz, $100,000. Toyota Camry, about $25,000, right? So a luxury product is just not something you need. This piece of furniture that I have behind me, okay, all of my furniture, everyone that watches this that knows what the Resplendent Crow is, knows that we sell beautiful, colored, lacquered furniture, right? It's high glosses, it's shiny, it's beautiful, and chicks love this stuff, and we just sell it literally all over the world, So it's very desirable. And again, you can have any piece of furniture that you want, a basic dresser, but if you can afford a Resplendent Crow, an $8,000 dresser, you got something really cool, right? And so we could charge that money because of several factors. Okay, now some of the other things I wrote down is, when it comes to talking about luxury goods, we have things like quality and craftsmanship, right? So this is something that is part of the selling factor of a luxury good. You have things like the price, right? Price obviously separates a lower tier product from a higher tier product, or the perception of a higher tier product, right? Because truth is, at the end of the day, a dresser is a dresser. It's going to have some drawers, probably some kind of a slide, it's going to have a carcass, a back, and it holds clothes. It's got a drawer box in it. That's basically the whole point of it. But how nice would it be to have one that has ball bearing slides, right? Or maybe the drawer boxes are made out of eBay wood, or the carcass is veneered in waterfall babinga. You can add layers and layers and layers upon the stuff that you buy to create a luxury product. Okay, so the other thing is exclusivity. And this is where price and quality are they start to move you up this spectrum of what becomes a luxury good. When you start including exclusivity, meaning not many people can afford it or simply don't have access to it. One of the things that luxury goods are able to do, or we're able to do, is we can only produce so much stuff, right? So when we sell a product, or we put a product online to be sold, it can be snatched up very quickly, which means we can charge what we want to charge for it within reason, and depending on how popular it is, or how much people really want it, depends on what they're willing to pay for, right? So having exclusivity, a lack of not only not being able to produce something, but specifically not producing it because you want it to be scarce. You want it to only be available to certain kinds of people and in certain markets. That's it, right? That's part of having a luxury good. It's super important, and a lot of people, when you're starting out, they don't realize this, and they want to sell to everybody and anybody because there's no business. But as you start to figure out your process, and you start to really figure out what it is you want to do as a business owner, you can start to hone in on what you want to do specifically. And if you want to be a luxury brand, you can definitely do it, right? So another thing we wrote down was the design aesthetic. Now, the thing about manufacturing is it's very difficult to manufacture certain kinds of things, right? So when you see a Ferrari will never be mistaken, for a I don't know what the cars are, a Chevy Cruze, right? A Ferrari has a very distinct kind of European or Italian look to it. Generally it's going to be specific kinds of colors. Ferrari has a patent on their particular red. There's things about these brands that are specifically for those brands, right? So the Resplendent Crow is just known for bright, vibrant colored furniture. And the truth is that we got in very early in the high gloss lacquered furniture game, and when it was just becoming kind of popular. And so my wife actually started selling this stuff very early on, and learned the shipping side of it all, and learned how to market this particular kind of product. And so the Resplendent Crow has been around for a long time in the high gloss lacquer game. We were one of the first people, which again is something in and of itself, right? Being first is almost more important than being best. So having a specific design aesthetic is very important. If you've seen a lot of our handmade furniture that we make here in St. Louis, I've showed you guys the Greek key stuff, the Emily stuff, the faux bamboo stuff. We are known. It's funny. This is something that it might be difficult to understand for people, but faux bamboo furniture has been around since like the 70s. It's been around for a long time. It's been popularized by companies like Henry Link, by Dixie. It's been Thomasville has made it. There's several people that have made this kind of furniture. But truth is that if you are into modern furniture, like you're into, gosh, I don't know what exactly I'm trying to say, but you're like newly into furniture, like you're interested in it. If you look up faux bamboo furniture, odds are you're going to see the Resplendent Crow. Like, we've almost assumed the association with faux bamboo furniture, even though we didn't create it. We haven't built nearly as much as anybody else, but because we've popularized the style with high gloss lacquer, it's almost become a Resplendent Crow kind of a thing. So it's kind of interesting that this is kind of new to me. I've never graduated high school. I'm totally learning on the job as I go over the years, but we've kind of become that, right? So if you do a search for faux bamboo furniture, you will see the Resplendent Crow will pop up right away, which almost doesn't make sense because in the grand scheme of things, we don't sell that much faux bamboo furniture, to be quite honest. And there's a million other people that paint faux bamboo furniture, and they do it in high gloss lacquer. But because we've been doing it so long, all the algorithms, whether it's, Google, Bing, YouTube, Facebook, Meta, whatever, all these algorithms have associated our name and our product with faux bamboo furniture. And it's led to what they call the Lindy effect, which means that people associate faux bamboo furniture that is high gloss lacquered with the resplendent crow because we've been doing it for so long. And that's translated into high gloss lacquered furniture is associated with the resplendent crow. And I've talked about this for a long time, but the longer you've been in business, the longer you've been doing something, the more people associate you with that product or service. And eventually you kind of become tied to it. And it's a good thing. But so I talk about the design aesthetic. In order to have a luxury good, you have to have a kind of a distinctive look, right? And the last thing is status. And this isn't something that was on the web when I just Googled like the definition of a luxury good, but status is really important, okay? So when somebody buys your product, the question is why? Like, why are they buying your product? How did they hear about you? These things are all important. And one of the main drivers for a luxury good is that if people are buying your product to show off to their friends how incredible this product is, or they heard from it from another friend, and they're buying it to, it's just like an iPhone used to be a status symbol, right? And then there became so many iPhones out there that it kind of lost its luster as a luxury product. It became more of just an everyday thing that people had. It's like you either had an iPhone or you had an Android, right? None was necessarily better than the other. In the beginning, the iPhone was vastly superior, and they could charge an insane amount of money. But if you noticed, the cost of an Apple iPhone and the cost of an Android phone there's kind of parity there, which is not good if you're going to try and sell a luxury product. So anyway, so status is really important. So it's important that people that are wealthy, that are well known, that have the means to purchase non-essential goods, which are what luxury items are. It's important that those people talk about your product and sell your product to their friends and their friends and their friends, and they are public with your product, right? So you want your product to be out there in the limelight where other people can see it, So you want to have, in our case, furniture, right? No one's going to wear our furniture somewhere, but people of means like to entertain. They like to have parties, especially the women of the house. They really enjoy having a nice, beautiful home that they can have the family over with, that they can entertain, have girls' night, kids' night, all these kind of things. And when those people come in and see their furniture, they want to talk about it. They want to tell you all about it. They want to tell you the story, right? And the story is huge. We've got more comments coming in here. What's your take on custom work versus a line of furniture for someone starting a business? What is your take on custom furniture versus a line of furniture for someone starting a business? Okay, so I'm doing the starting a new line of furniture thing right now, so I can show you that actually. I'll talk about it as well, but if you want, I'd be happy just to show you what the difference is, because I actually have it going on right now. And there's two different ways to look at that. So there's starting a new business with a furniture line that is production oriented, and there is starting a furniture line that is luxury good oriented or handmade, right? And when you say custom work, custom is very different than having a furniture line, right? A furniture line is meant to sell to somebody. They don't have to make a decision. They like the product, they like the dimensions, and they just buy it, right? Versus custom work, where even if you have product lines, right? Like say you have 3 or 4 different lines of furniture that have nightstands, dressers, credenzas, china cabinets, all these things in them, you're always going to sell those in exactly the proportions and exactly the configurations that they're there, but there's always going to be people that want custom, right? Which is one of the best reasons to have a production line, because 10% of everything you sell, probably 10% of everything you sell in that production line will be custom, right? Which means you get a premium on top of that, depending on who you're selling to. So I'll be happy to go back to that. I'm kind of just going to try and go through my notes here a little bit, and then I will come back to starting a business doing custom versus production line. I'll kind of show you guys the steps that I went through, because what I did, to be quite honest with you, is I started at custom. I then went to product line, and then I went to starting what I call I don't want to use the word cheaper, but a more accessible line of furniture, and how I did that. And they're all very different. So anyway, going through all the different things that make up a luxury good, right? We talked about quality, craftsmanship, price, scarcity, exclusivity, design, aesthetic, and status. And all these things, you have to have all of them to have a luxury brand. And what usually happens is people start to lose those things. And when you start to lose those things, you fall out of this tier of furniture makers, or whatever your product is, whether it's, you could be making, expensive milk I mean, everyone knows there's expensive milk out there. But if you start losing the quality, right, you're going to fall out of that top tier, right? If you get a name that, whatever, Ferrari's cars are turned into junk, whatever, Ferrari's design sucks, the design aesthetic that I was talking about, you start to do that for too long, you start to drop out of here, and eventually you fall out of that rarefied air of being able to charge whatever you want, being able to get it done whenever you want to get it done, right? And then the last thing I wrote down is you can produce it with the highest level of quality, okay? And that's the next thing I want to talk about, okay? These, what they call like the three-legged stool, right? So anyone that buys products, and we've got more people in here. So, again, guys, hit the like button and keep the comments coming. So here's the thing. When you have a business, this is probably nothing new to anybody, but tell me if you guys have heard this, but there's a three-legged stool, right? You got price, you got quality, and you got speed, okay? You can have two or three. You can't have all three. The only people that get to have all three are luxury brands, right? And that's really what it boils down to, okay? So if you want to have something done quickly and you want to have it for cheap, right, the quality isn't going to be very good, right? And if you want to play with all three of those, you can have two of them, you just can't have the third unless you sell a luxury good, right? So we'll take what I have behind me, okay? So normally, if I was, Joe Blow or someone that's starting out in the game, right? You want to paint vintage furniture, right? There's a lot of questions you got to ask yourself. But again, if you're trying to sell this thing, people are going to pay me $5,000 to paint their secretary cabinet, right? They're probably not going to pay you $5,000, and it's because you don't have the name, right? You haven't put in the time, you don't have the facility, you don't have the story. You're missing a lot of the components that it takes to operate as a luxury good, right? So you're going to have to give up one of those things, right? Or your customer is going to have to give up one of those things. Thus, they're not going to pay you what you want to make, right? It's very rare that somebody can take whatever they want. So take this for example. Here's how it works. I charge $5,000 for this. I can tell people it's going to take, normally I used to say it would take 8 weeks for this. I can tell people it's going to take 16 weeks and they're still going to buy, right? I can double my lead time. I'm still going to get the sale, right? And then I can say to somebody, the quality is always going to be the best, right? So if I say to somebody, yeah, it's going to be $5,000 and it's going to take me 16 weeks to get this thing done, but you're going to get the Resplendent Crow finish, right? Because I've done this for so long, I've sent out so many pieces, and we have such a great name within this particular space, people are going to say, great, right? It's just, unfortunately, it's just how it goes. Like until you've been in business long enough and developed enough of a name for yourself and done it, you got what I call the Lindy effect. Until you have that Lindy effect working for you, it's very hard that you get to do all three of those things. So if you're coming up in the game, you're probably only going to get two of them, and your customer is just going to have to be okay with that. Okay, so I had the last thing that I wrote down pertaining to luxury goods is story and pedigree. Now this is. I'm assuming mostly men are probably listening to this, but your brand has to have some, have to have something to say, right? Like, why do people choose you over somebody else? Especially if you say you produce the same quality, right? Your price is the same, your lead times are about the same. Everything is about the same. You have to be willing to talk about what it is you do. And that's kind of one of the reasons I do this kind of stuff. Is it's good for the algorithm for Google. Here's a quick side tangent for anyone that wants to get in the business game. You have to use social media. You have to use the internet. You have to know things like search engine optimization, all these kind of things. You have to know how to develop websites, tags, all this stuff. And when you put out content like this, where we're talking about high gloss furniture, we're talking about luxury goods, we're talking about making furniture, all the different things that we talk about here, it helps the algorithm to put your name into the box of what you could think of as respectable brands or trustworthy brands. There's a thing called like, know, and trust, which is why I basically do this stuff. It helps people to understand that, the Resplendent Crow is a real company. They're real products. Here's this guy talking about all this stuff. He's constantly talking about his furniture. He's constantly talking about how he makes his furniture, why he makes furniture, where he came from. My wife's from India. We talk about her. We talk about how she started the Resplendent Crow, why she likes furniture. And again, this stuff sounds a little crazy, and it's just like, well, this is just a lot of nothing. Trust me, it's not. right? And it's the most important thing about a company is that people like you, they know you, and they trust you. And it didn't used to be that way. Unfortunately, things have changed a lot in the age of the internet. People have more choices than ever, right? So you want to tell people what it is that you do, why you do it. I talk about it all the time. I lived in a trailer in Corvallis, Oregon. It was a double wide though, it was good. But we had a cabinet shop in my company, and it wasn't a great upbringing, but it was fine. It was a middle class living, And anyway, business completely dried up. Right, I've talked about that. I moved to Kansas, started building furniture for jets. So all this stuff helps to build your story, right, and then build your pedigree. What have you done? Do you have any kind of accolades? And some people, we used to call those things like degrees, right? Or I interned here, I did this thing. If you're, in the school side, I did this research paper. I interned for this company. All those kind of things. They think of that as kind of their story. That's not really what a story is. It's part of it, but there's a lot more to your story and the pedigree of what you've done. When you could say, I started building cabinets when I was, 8 years old, right? Anybody could say that, right? But if you've been doing it for 10 years, talking about it, you start to develop a like, know, and trust thing, right? When you can talk about making furniture or painting or being an upholsterer or whatever it is you did, you can talk about that on the internet for a very long time. This stuff really happens. This is a back-end business thing. Like, this is one of the reasons we do all this kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm kind of going on a side tangent there, but pedigree and story are very important. So that's why I do all the talks, and I talk about starting your own businesses and painting furniture and making furniture. So I had some questions that I wrote down that I thought would be kind of interesting to talk about. So if anyone has any other questions pertaining to luxury goods and making furniture, how to start a company, and I know IBF, you got one. I'm going to get to yours in just a minute. I wrote down at the very top of my page, American-made goods are almost luxury items. And this is very sad to me as a person, because it means that our products have gotten so expensive that most other people in the world can't afford them, right? We're not competitive with the rest of the world because of just how expensive everything is here in America. The reason we outsource everything in America is because people are going to college, they're learning how to outsource work. They're learning how to find cheaper ways to make things, and oftentimes that cheaper way is just sending the work overseas. They're not learning to come up with better ways to make things. They're just learning cheaper ways, and oftentimes it's outsourcing that money, right? So it bothers me that American-made goods are basically luxury products anymore. And what I do is not special, right? Like I make furniture. I paint furniture. That's all I do. That used to not be a special thing, and somehow it's become almost a luxury good to know that, hey, Eric makes furniture. Eric Wilkin made this piece of furniture. Like, it's very weird. I don't like it. I think we need more people starting companies, starting businesses, which is why I'm going to get to IBF's question. We need more people doing this stuff. We need more people starting businesses, painting furniture, making furniture, building houses, whatever it is that you do, making couches, being into upholstery. We need more people to do this kind of stuff. And the more I think we talk about it and we get the conversation going about doing this kind of stuff here in America, I think it's going to help to break apart the consolidation that we have in America. Every industry is consolidated down to basically MBAs, people that went to college, have some kind of an advertising degree, a marketing degree, and probably design degrees. Okay, we've replaced all the people that make the stuff with the people that think about making the stuff and design it and sell it. And we've outsourced all that work overseas. And I think it's getting ready to change, where we're going to get more people making stuff and more people starting companies where they make stuff that are made, or the companies are started by people who actually make the stuff. So I think we're going to start seeing more of that. So I hope that having these conversations kind of helps. So anyway, I got some questions I wrote down, and here we go. So why can't a person in their garage make the same product as a brand and sell it for the same price, right? So this is I use the example of, we're on YouTube here. There's a guy that he always escapes me. The guy that makes the epoxy tables, like Windtail or Pixie Tail or Blacktail. I think it's Blacktail Studios. That dude is freaking awesome. Like, he makes a really cool product, and he's has an entertaining channel, and he's doing really good things. So if you go into your garage, right, and you follow all the steps of that guy, and you put your epoxy table out for sale, why can't you sell it for the same price that he sells his tables for, right? So his tables, I'm guessing, are probably 10 grand, right? So if you put a table out there for 10 grand, it's epoxy, no one's gonna buy your table, right? And the question is, why is that? And it's because you aren't him, right? He was the first, he was not the first, but he was the guy to popularize that particular style of table, right? So that's what I was telling you. It's almost better to be first than be best. And if you're one of these people that kind of does things first, you have a major advantage over everybody else that's coming in after you. And so that's one of the reasons that you can't make something in your garage. It's gonna take you a long time. Now, if you can make something in your garage that is a super interesting product that kind of catches on, you can be that person, but it takes a long time. It's very difficult to do. And this guy, I don't know his backstory, but my guess is that this wasn't the first thing he's ever made before. He's probably worked at this for a very long time, making all different kinds of products that weren't as successful, got into this thing and figured out how to make it work, and he's crushing it, which is freaking awesome. So that's one of the reasons you can't do it. You don't have the name, you weren't first to market, and the thing is that what you're making isn't that special. And that's one of the hardest things I've learned is that I used to make stained grade furniture. I've made lots of credenzas and dressers out of stained woods, and the truth is that my stuff isn't that good. It's not that special. Anybody can make one of my stained dressers, but if I put the name Resplendent Crow behind it, well, then it has a little more cachet. It's still very difficult to sell, but you can do it. It's having that name and having done it for a very long time gives you a little bit of an advantage, So anyway, that's one of the reasons you can't sell a product at the same price that somebody else sells, even though you make the exact same thing. It's like you don't have the name, you weren't first to market, you haven't been doing it long enough. Those are the kind of things there. How do you create a luxury good? And truth is, a luxury good gets created by accident. It's not something that you start off one day. And again, I'm always talking woodworking, but you're not going into your garage thinking, oh, I'm gonna create this luxury brand, Bill's Better Beds, whatever. Like you don't think about it like that. It almost happens by accident. And you realize that you find a niche, right? When you find a niche, you can then create a luxury product, right? But you have to have something that you have to have almost like the light bulb goes off. You have to have that moment where it's like, oh shit, like something here's this is really resonating with people, and who is it resonating with? Why is it resonating with them, right? It's one thing if you're resonating, selling a specific kind of soda, but if you're selling soda to millionaires, like that's a very different kind of situation. So anyway, I hope that kind of answers that question, but it's very difficult, and you're not going to be able to just, I don't think you're going to be able to just start making a luxury product in your garage, right? If you had a couple $1,000,000, and you could plan ahead and you had a little bit of investor money, I think you could absolutely go into a targeted luxury space, but it's very difficult. So another thing I wrote down, who are the founders and revolutionaries that create or transform the brand? Okay, every brand has people that come into that company over the course of the years and they change things about that company, or they add to the legacy, the story, the pedigree, all these kind of things for a company. And you'll read about these people over the years, and it's kind of interesting. If you're, again, people probably aren't into fashion, but there's a guy named Karl Lagerfeld, who was a designer at Chanel, and he basically designed entire collections of fashion for Chanel, and completely changed the perception of that company. Kind of brought it from where it was kind of coming down, brought it back up, had very iconic styles and things like that. And there's people that just kind of do these things. You talk about the story of Lamborghini. Apparently the guy that founded Lamborghini used to work for Ferrari and got super pissed and said, yeah, I'm gonna put this guy out of business, and started his own company. So he kind of, there's things that happen with people that it just changes the company and changes the direction. Whereas one day you're working on one thing, you get somebody who comes in, completely changes what you're doing, you go in a different direction. So people are interesting that start companies and transform brands. Take someone like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs wasn't anybody special necessarily. I mean, he was a college dropout making things in his garage, ended up creating Apple, the company, the Mac, right? I mean, it's a very important, iconic computing system, and I think everyone at this point kind of knows who Steve Jobs is, but it's important to know who these people are and what it is that they do that creates these crazy companies. Like Hermes, the bag and fashion company, they were making equestrian equestrian products, saddles and bags and things like that. They're very good with leathers, right? Turned into where they are a billion-dollar company that makes handbags and scarves and plates and I mean all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I just thought it was neat for people to learn that stuff. And then someone like who are Suchetta and Eric, right? So my wife and myself. My wife is somebody who moved here from India about 25 years ago and moved here with her husband, right? Because that's the goal of everyone in India is basically a little bit of a generalization, but it's kind of true. The goal is to get to America, right? And this is true for a lot of countries. Everyone wants to come here because you could literally be anybody when you're in America, which is kind of wild. So yeah, she came here 25 years ago and moved here with her husband. They ended up getting divorced. She started painting in her garage, right? In her little tiny garage in Creve Coeur, Missouri, and started playing around with paint finishes. She couldn't find something that was super shiny, and she found this product called Fine Paints of Europe that was super shiny, but she knew that she couldn't own a business or start a company using that product because it takes too damn long to cure. And even though the finish is amazing and it's beautiful, she wasn't a big brand at that point. She was nobody. She was just some woman painting in her garage and just wanted something shiny, but she knew that if she was going to grow that thing, she couldn't do it with that particular product. So she kept playing around with different products until she finally stumbled on Mohawk paint, and she started painting furniture with Mohawk paint. And she used Benjamin Moore's High Gloss Advanced to paint stuff, tried all kinds of things, and we've changed the formulas that we use and the products we use over the years to create this company that we have now that sells really expensive painted furniture, and then like myself, my story, I've told my story. Came from Oregon, moved to Kansas, to Oklahoma, to, Savannah, Georgia, finally up here to St. Louis, and it just moved around chasing work and always making furniture at work. And then when I got off work, making furniture, try and start companies constantly. I've had 3 companies, they've all failed. Finally got one that, has lasted longer than a couple of years, So anyway, the stories are kind of important of the people that start companies, and it really helps with your brand. So, and then the last thing I wrote down is, are luxury goods special? And truth is, luxury goods aren't special. They're special to the people that buy them. And there's nothing genuinely special. Special is the word that I wrote down. It's not really how I describe it. What makes a luxury good, I think, more desirable than other goods is the amount of work that goes into it, and that's it. What we do here, good luck mechanizing it. Good luck sending what we do overseas. Good luck. It's too temperamental. It requires too much sanding work for anybody to do it here in America. That's why I always tell people how we do things. Because I know that not many people are going to do it, right? And I'm basically calculating the people that would do what we do aren't going to do it as well as we are, right? Because we've been doing it for so long, we're just really good at it. But it's the amount of work that goes into it. That's basically what it boils down to. The reason a Ferrari is $500,000 is because it's still made by hand. It's still made by hand. You could go buy a Chevrolet Corvette, faster car, looks pretty nice, American made, all this kind of stuff for 60 grand, but anytime you see a Corvette, you don't even look at it twice. It's not special anymore because there's a million of them there, right? It's the everyman's supercar. When you see a Ferrari, whether it was made in 1970 or 2025, you always rubberneck. Everyone always looks because it's special. Everyone knows it's special because they know the amount of hours that go into making that thing. They know how rare it is, how expensive it is, all the things that I talked about here. There's not many people that own them because of all those things. So when you do see it, it's an event, right? And it's the same thing with a Resplendent Crow piece of furniture. When people see those, when you walk into a home, most people's furniture is it might be white, it might be, some kind of a taupey color if it's painted. A lot of times it's some kind of a stain grade furniture, if it's even real. We've got laminates and fake thermofoils and all kinds of stuff. But when you see a high gloss, shiny piece of furniture, most people are going to say, wow, is that a Resplendent Crow, right? And that's what you want. That's what it boils down to have a luxury brand. People look at your car, they go, man, is that a Ferrari? That coat, oh, is that a Chanel? These things are what you want to do if you're going to create a luxury brand. And man, it takes a long time. It takes a lot of work. And what you do has to be special, and you can't bullshit yourself because you're going to be competing with a lot of other people if what you do isn't that special. If what you do is very special, people will let you know. They won't care what the price is. They won't care how long it takes to get it. And they absolutely will expect it as top tier quality, right? And you get to do those things as a luxury brand owner. You get to take all the time you want, charge whatever you want, and you can get it done whatever you want, which is awesome. It's really what you want. And again, you're not going to get rich, because people aren't going to pay 10 grand for this, but they'll pay 5,000 all day long. So Anyway, that's kind of my talk on luxury goods. You know, why we make luxury goods, what luxury goods are, different kinds of luxury goods. So I'll kind of go back to my questions here. So yeah, what's your take on custom work versus line of furniture for someone starting a business? So the thing, what it's going to boil down to at the end of the day is it's always comes down to money, right? So if you're, and depending on where you're working, right, do you have access to the things that make production lines possible, right? Do you have access to the people, you know, the skills, all the kind of things that it takes to start a production line? And if you're talking about just making custom work in your garage or your small little factory versus making a production line in your garage or small factory and trying to put together a line of pieces as opposed to just doing one-off custom work, I almost think you have to start at the custom work, because for the most part, money is always a problem. Like money, people are always going to have issues with money. I mean, I got issues with money, right? Like my machines are old, my processes are old, you know, and it's very difficult to get the money, you know. So I think that if you can be patient and you put together a really good plan, I think that a product line is actually the way to go. But due to money constraints and things like that, and finding customers, custom work is generally where you start, and it's the easiest to make sales, because that's a whole other component to the furniture game, is the sales side, right? And we rarely talk about that. I don't talk about it as much because my wife handles most of it, but you know, I'm kind of the backseat driver on a lot of stuff, so I see a lot of things. I don't know that I get it, but I do see it. When you have a product line, you're basically, and I've done this, so I'll elaborate a little bit. But when you do a product line, you're basically assuming that you're making a product that another person is willing to buy, right? So that means you must have some kind of an intuition about the design or the aesthetic, right? That people are going to willingly give you money for the thing that you've already made. You've put together a website, you've put together marketing information, you spent all these resources creating this product or products. You introduce it to the world and you try and sell it, right? So you have to have a lot of resources up front to do that. But again, what I was saying earlier in the talk is that if you have a product line, you know, 10% of your sales will be custom versions of that product line, you know. So I think that having a product line, if I could do it all over again and had infinite money, that's the way I would start, because I'm very confident in my design, right? I'm very confident in my ability to produce things. I have the resources and I have the knowledge, I think, to do it. You know, whereas if you don't, if you're not sure on a lot of those things, custom work is the way to go, because custom work will give you a lot of ideas. It'll get you into making a ton of things, and it'll get you into seeing a lot of ways that things are designed and the way things are made. You'll start to formulate your own ideas about what's popular, what you think would sell, what you think can get you, you know, the most, you know, dollars for the least amount of effort. So yeah, custom work is freaking awesome. It's how everyone starts, and it's a lot of fun. But as I've said again in other videos, I had a guy tell me that one time. I told him that all I wanted to do was do the one-off stuff, because that's what I really like to do. And he says, buddy, it's a hard way to make a living. and at the time I didn't know it. I just thought, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But truth is he had a woodworking company. He'd been doing it for, you know, decades. And truth is that he knew, like, if you're gonna doing custom work is awesome, but at some point you're gonna want to stop doing custom work. Custom work is the thing you do at the beginning and the end of your career. It's not what you do during the 20 or 30 years in the middle, right? It's just, like I said, it's a hard way to make a living. So yeah, that's what I would do, you know. But there's just so many aspects to getting the company going, and so many aspects to selling products. Even if you make something, right, you got to have the resources to sell that product, right? You have to have the advertising dollars. You know, you got to learn about Meta ads, you got to learn about Google ads, you got to learn how to take good pictures of your product, because people don't want to see shitty pictures, right? You got to have good ways to describe your product, you know. And so if you have a product line, and all that hinges on the fact that you have a good design and good marketing, right? You can have a completely shitty design, and if you have a crappy design, you're going to do all that work for nothing, right? And then truth is that you have to be able to be willing to say, well, great, well, that didn't work. I'm going to throw something else out there, right? So you got to throw some more resources at it, you know, and start making other things, you know. But if you're doing custom work, you can take other people's ideas and other designs, formulate your own stuff, and you can start adding those things to your website as you make them, right? So you make this custom product, well, that becomes part of your portfolio, right? Even if it's for somebody else, you can still use pictures, and a lot of customers are really cool. They'll let you use their stuff, and they'll help you out. But, you know, you start kind of bouncing from job to job to job to job till eventually you build up this portfolio of things, and then you can market that as you're going, and that's a much more palatable way to start a company versus doing a production line type situation, you know. And then the last thing I'll say about the production line is what I'm doing now is, yes, I already do production lines, but what I'm doing now is I'm going from hand making my products to CNC cutting my products, right? So now we're talking about not only different product lines, but completely different grades or qualities of product, right? So you got to be very careful when you're making, you know, say an $8,000 dresser that's made by hand with framing panels, plywood, hardwoods, all these kind of things, to handmade drawer boxes, to a $4,000 dresser, right? That's CNC cut everything, right? There's hardly any handmade anything on this thing. Even the drawer boxes are CNC cut, you know. So you have to make sure your customer understands that, right? And the cost to do that is way more than doing custom work, right? Because you gotta put in all that CNC time, all the engineering time, and if you can't do it, you gotta pay someone, and they are freaking expensive, you know. And then you have to order in a lot of that stuff, right? Because you gotta pre-make all this stuff, you gotta show people stuff, right? There's costs associated with that. So anyway, it gets very expensive, and it's a tough way to do it, but it's very necessary when you have a company. You gotta find different ways to make money. You have to have different kinds of revenue streams. And unfortunately, everyone thinks that your business just goes up like this all the time. The truth is, business kind of goes level. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. It's very difficult, but over like a 10-year period, you hope that it trends upwards. So anyway, I think that's probably enough for today. I did my talk, and I'm trying to do these talks every Friday and Saturday, or Sunday, excuse me. I try and show everyone what's in the shop on Friday. Sunday, I try and talk about furniture or show furniture, either or. So I hope everyone likes these conversations. I appreciate the likes, the comments, and the participation. And I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. And we got another week coming up, so I'll see you guys probably on Friday.